And good afternoon, everyone. My name is Bukola Desami, and I am the Outreach Specialist in the Office for Students and Young Consumers. We're excited to have this webinar for you today. We have a few great speakers lined up, but before we get into today's presentation, I do want to go through a few administrative items with you. As Tracy mentioned, this webinar is being recorded, and a copy of this webinar, along with the slides, will be published on our website within about 2 to 3 weeks after today. Our website is consumerfinance.gov, and you can find the webinar there. We will also be monitoring the chat during the webinar, so if you have any questions, please feel free to drop them in the chat, and we will try to get to as many questions at the end of this presentation as time permits. Lastly, I just want to share this brief disclaimer that today's presentation is being given on behalf of Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, and today's speakers are not giving legal guidance or advice. Any opinions or views expressed by the speakers are their own and may not represent the Bureau. The Consumer Financial Protection Agency we're an agency that was created out of the Dodd-Frank Act, and our mission is to implement and enforce consumer financial protection laws and ensure that markets are working fairly and transparently. At the CFPB, we have a Consumer Education and External Affairs division, and today you will hear from two of the offices within that division. You'll hear from Leslie Jones, who works in the K-12 Financial Education Office, and you'll hear from Kate Mullan and Leissan Sadykova, who works in our Students and Young Consumers Office. We are also being joined by the Department of Education, and we will start today's webinar off by hearing from them. So I will turn things over to our first speaker, who is Brent Madoo from Department of Education. Brent?
Thank you, Bukola. Good afternoon. My name is Brent Madoo, and I'm the team lead on the data products team within the Office of the Chief Data Officer at the Department of Education. I'm passionate about making the department's data accessible, understandable, and reusable for everyone. So I'm really excited to be part of this event and share with you the college scorecard. I hope you'll learn more and you'll be able to share it with your constituents. So some background information in case you're not already familiar with College Scorecard. College Scorecard is a consumer information initiative by the department. Scorecard brings together information on college cost, graduation rates, student loan debt, post-college earnings, and much more. There are three main goals of this effort. The first and the most important goal of the effort is to provide students and families with information so that they can make more informed choices and better informed decisions when they are choosing post-secondary options. We achieve this goal by creating a user-centered website, collegescorecard.ed.gov, that I will be showing you in a few moments. This site is really designed for students, families, and their counselors to use. Our second goal is to provide policymakers, stakeholders with information to enable them to make more informed decisions. And we achieve that goal by each year putting out an unprecedented amount of data through data files. So we have data files that show institutional outcomes, including data on students' earnings, debt loads, and also repayment rates for borrowers. That's just a few of the items that we make available. Our third goal is to make the data widely available so others can use the data and multiply that effort. We do this through an API. So this allows developers to tap into our data and share that with their constituents. And it allows them to access and analyze it easier. One example that you might see College Scorecard data and how organization that might be tapping into our API is a Google. For example, you might do a Google search on a institution, and you might see that these data were provided by College Scorecard. So College Scorecard provides over 2,000 data elements. I've highlighted a few here, but we really are focused on the most trusted data, and we partner with federal student aid, also the National Center for Educational Statistics, and also the IRS to provide that data. We're able to provide data and basically measure certain subsets of students, for example, federally aided students, borrowers, and larger populations of students. So these are just a few areas that we provide data. But let's take a look at the scorecard site itself. Just give me a moment to share my screen. Okay, so you should be able to see my browser here. I'm going to make this a little bit bigger for you all. When you come to the College Scorecard site, you are offered 3 options to search for schools. So you can search, if you know the name of the school, you can just type it in right in this box. If you're interested in learning more about a certain field of study that an institution might offer, you can type it here, for example, accounting here, and we'll return a list of schools that offer accounting. There's also a broader search. If you're not quite sure, you could create a search based on your preferences. For example, where do most students graduate? Maybe you're interested in getting a bachelor's degree. Just hit this button, and it will return a larger list of schools. On the left-hand side, you can customize your search more. For example, maybe you want to narrow it down to a certain location, like a state, or maybe you're looking for a small or medium or large school. So there's endless possibilities here with customizing your search. For the sake of time, I'm going to jump right in and assume that you're searching for a school that you might already know the name of. And I want to show you what information we provide. So let's assume that you are interested in George Mason University, and I'm not plugging George Mason, it's my alma mater. You'll be taken to a page that shows some basic information on the school. For example, what type of awards are awarded at the institution? Is it public, private, the setting, the student body? You'll also see graduation rate, average annual cost, and median earnings. If you're unfamiliar with any of the metrics, for example, maybe you're not sure what average annual cost means, you can click on this blue icon and you'll be able to see a little bit more information about the metric itself. So for average annual cost here, we're really talking about the net price, the cost of attendance minus any sort of grant aid or scholarships received. So it really is what students are coming out of pocket to pay to give you a sense of at that institution. I really encourage you to dive more into the institution by clicking more details, or you can click on the school link. And this will take you to a school profile page. You'll see many of the metrics that we have went over, but a little bit more context there. For example, you're seeing graduation rate again, but now you can compare it against other schools. So you can see how the graduation stacks up against other four-year schools here or all schools. So you can do comparison points. If you scroll down the page, we offer a lot more information in other topics. You can just expand that the section to find more information. For example, field of study. If you're interested in certain fields of study, we provide a list or an option to search for a certain field of study to find more information. So here we provide a list of the largest size by graduates, highest earnings, lowest debt. And perhaps you're interested in diving in a little bit deeper and learning more about a certain field of study offered by the school. You can just expand this and you can see what typical earnings are for students that graduate from this program. You can also see get a sense of what type of debt they're graduating with, the amount, and what the median loan, the monthly loan payment would be. So this is a very useful tool here, section. I'm going to highlight just a few more because I have about 2 minutes left and there's a lot of information here. We also have average annual costs. And I think this is very useful if you're working with some families that are not sure about what a potential institution could cost. And you want to tailor it and have a conversation about potentially with a context of their income. For example, we show average annual cost by family income ranges here. If they want a more personalized estimate, they can go to the school's net price calculator and put in some more information to get a better idea of the cost. Another area that I'd like to show you is the financial aid and debt. Here we show you some more information on the population of the students that receive federal loans at the institution. We also give you a sense of the debt and how much a typical loan payment might be after the student graduates. Recently, we added some more information around repayment rates. Here we want to show you how students are doing after they leave the institution. Are they making progress on their loans if they are taking debt? Are they not making progress? Are they paying it in full after 2 years? Of course, if you're not familiar with the statuses, you can click on this button and learn more about that. Finally, I do want to show that we do have information on the student body, so you can get a sense of diversity, how the student body looks. We do show socioeconomic diversity, which we view as the number of students, the percentage of students that are covered with Pell Grants. We show race and ethnicity, as well as a breakdown of full-time and part-time. So a lot of information here that I encourage you to dive in with your students and learn more about. The last feature I want to talk about is our compare tool. You can build a list here by simply clicking this button above here to say add compare schools. You can add a school, essentially it's equivalent to a shopping cart. You can start to add schools, create a list up to 10 schools. And then you can go to another school profile, which I'll show you real quickly, and simply add them there. Once you do that, you have a tray here that you can simply click on compare schools, and then you can stack up many of the measures so that you can understand how each institution does compared to each other. So the college scorecard has a lot of information, a wealth of information for you to share with your constituents. We hope that you dive in and use the tool. We do believe that we are displaying some of the best data in terms of helping students to make decisions around post-secondary options. So I encourage you to use the tool, and of course, I think there'll be some time to ask some questions later on in the presentation. So thank you very much for your time, and now I'll pass it on to my colleague, Kellis.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Kellis Robbins. I'm with the Department of Education's Office of Federal Student Aid, and I am the product owner for our tool, the Federal Student Aid Estimator, which I will be talking to you about today. The Federal Student Aid Estimator was released in fall 2021 and is a wonderful tool that helps users and students understand what their potential financial aid could be. We give information about their potential Pell Awards, work study, and direct loan eligibility. And to do so, we ask that students provide 3 basic pieces of information, or types of information, I should say, including student demographic information, household information, and financial information. Once we have those pieces, we are able to calculate a quick, non-binding estimate of a student's expected family contribution, their EFC, as well as I mentioned, Pell Grants, work study, and direct loan eligibility. Our results page also does link out to the college scorecard to allow students to further customize and pursue their own education goals and ideas. So I'm going to share my screen real quick and give you all a demo of the estimator. All right, and let me make this bigger. So to reach the Federal Student Aid Estimator, the URL as given in the PowerPoint presentation is studentaid.gov/aid-estimator. The estimator is also found on the homepage of the free application for federal student aid, the FAFSA, as well, to encourage users to kind of use this as a pre-FAFSA tool to understand what the results could be ahead of time. As you can see from this landing page, parents, students, and college access professionals who are looking to get a non-binding estimate of what their aid package could look like are encouraged to use this tool. And it will take less than 10 minutes. The information that you need to have on hand is not only your own personal demographic information, but importantly, a few key pieces of tax information, such as your household's income and assets. So let's get started. So in this demo, I'm going to pretend that I am a 18-year-old student. So let's say I was born, I always use January 1st just to keep it easy. Born in 2004. And as an 18-year-old student, I would be unmarried. And for the sake of this, we're going to say my legal residence is Washington State. When I begin college, I'm going to be a freshman. And then we get to the dependency information. This helps us decide whether you're an independent or dependent student as well. In this example, I am going to say no, I do not have dependents that I support. And for these additional questions, I am not going to be a veteran, in foster care, or homeless. I'm going to say none of the above. But if you have any questions about why we ask this, we do have help tools that will link you out to help topics and tool tips to provide additional information on why these pieces of information are important. Now we get into household information. In this case, because I'm 18, I will need to provide parent information. In this example, I'm going to say my parents are married and that my older parent is 55. And for this example, I'm also going to say my parents live in Washington State. Now we get to household size. So household size includes the student, parents, and the number of people who live with you. So let's say for this example, I'm going to say I'm a single child, my parents are married, so household of 3. But for number in college, in this example, I'm going to be the only one going in college, so we're going to leave that number to 1. Continue, and we get to the financial information. We're going to say that yes, my parents did file taxes in 2020, but I did not. And we're going to say that my parents' income, we'll say, is $35,000 per year. My income was 0. And I'm going to say my parents' assets are $1,500, for example. And maybe I have $200 in assets. These are really the only pieces of financial information we need for the estimator, but it does give users and students an idea of the sort of information they can expect to input when they fill out their actual FAFSA. We also do have additional tool tips if users need help calculating what is included in a household asset. So now we come to our results page. Again, we warn users that this is not the actual FAFSA. So if we highly encourage students to actually complete the FAFSA, but this is more of a quick tool to get that estimate. So based on the household size and the income and assets I provided, the estimated EFC is 670. We scroll down a little bit and we talk about not only what the EFC is, but how it impacts cost of attendance and is used in financial need. And as I mentioned, we do also link to scorecard here so that users can apply that EFC to the schools that they might be interested in. Scrolling down, we also see that my demo student in this case is potentially eligible for Pell Grant. We also provide the average work study amount that users can be they might be expected, and how many direct loans that the student might be eligible for. And we provide these 3 pieces of information to help students and parents and financial aid administrators understand what their financial aid picture could be. We understand that the financial aid process can be a little bit scary and intimidating. Users may not think that they are eligible for any aid. So we wanted to try and dispel those misconceptions, and using the estimator, provide a tool and a snapshot that could give them an idea early on of what their aid could look like, and therefore help them make an informed decision when it comes time to apply for college. And here we just have a total of the federal student aid based on these 3 figures above. We also direct students to next steps, including creating an FSA ID so that when the time comes, they have that account ready to go to file their FAFSA. And as I mentioned, we do link out to College Scorecard so that users can apply that information that they received in the estimator and make an informed financial decision and research. So I am going to stop sharing and pass it on to our next presenter, Leissan.
Thank you. So hi, everyone. My name is Leissan. I'm the Senior Program Analyst at the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. Prior to joining the Bureau, I did work in financial aid offices for the last 11 years, and I've worked at state financial aid institutions as well as private. So this is why I'm very passionate about Grad Path. So Grad Path was a tool that was built based on research that helps equip students to turn every financial aid offer that they receive into an actual plan to pay for school. So it allows students to take a lot of different financial aid offers, put them into one tool, and then compare them kind of like apples to apples comparisons across their different offers, rather than looking at each offer individually, which might not kind of give them the same exact overview of their financial aid offer and their cost of attendance. So it is an interactive plan that can be saved and revised, and that's kind of what we hope that students and parents do. They can come and create one plan, go back, get some more info, come back, revise it, add more detail, add more information. So it's really used as like a living, breathing tool that can be modified. It also provides explanations of some jargon and some financial aid steps that maybe they might miss or might be a little bit confusing on their actual award letter. It helps them kind of translate that into easier language to understand. There's also money saving tips throughout the tool. And then it also shows a running total of all the costs that are still not yet covered. And it helps at the very end project the amount of debt that a student might graduate with if they go forward with this plan, and help them decide whether it's affordable, or at least start kind of thinking long-term about what is going to happen with their loan. So it really gives students a clear picture of kind of the lifetime of their loan. So with that, I will go ahead and share the tool. So this is what the tool kind of looks like. And I chose George Washington University just because that's the latest university that I have worked at. And we actually created links with all this information pre-filled for students to help them understand their financial aid offer when it comes to looking at our school at the School of Public Health. So that's why I input George Washington here. So that's the school I'm going to use as an example. So over on the left-hand side of the tool, it kind of gives you an overview of what's included. So first things first, students are going to kind of fill in their school, their living situation, their cost of attendance, which can be pulled in from the Department of Education, or they can input it if they have that information, or schools can also input that information and send it out. Any grants and scholarships, and then all the federal aid and any other resources. Then it kind of moves into covering your costs. So making sure that if they need to borrow, that they're borrowing strategically and students have a plan, not only for borrowing, but also for repaying. Then it goes into affording your loan. So how much debt is this going to be? What is the interest going to be? And then can I afford it? And then finally, students can revise, think about this plan more, maybe compare it to other schools, and also gives them what to do next, some next steps that they can think about. So that's kind of the layout of the tool. I'm really going to focus on a couple of things just for the sake of time. So this is kind of the basics that students can fill out. It's just kind of asking their general information. Cost of attendance can be pre-filled from the Department of Education data, or students can manually input it. So the main thing I'm going to focus down here is on federal loans. So up here at the top, this is calculated from cost of attendance, so the costs page, minus any other aid that has been input. So any grants and scholarships, any work study, and then any loans that have been input into the tool. There's a running total up here in the upper right-hand corner that students can kind of see how much they haven't covered yet. So I just gave the student a standard $3,500 freshman annual loan limit subsidized loan and the standard $2,000 unsubsidized loan. You might notice here there's loan fees, interest rates and loan fees that are shown for both loans. So interest rates get pulled in from the Department of Education automatically. So it's always the most up-to-date interest rate. And then the loan fee really tells students what this loan fee and origination fee is. I know working in financial aid offices, this is one of the most confusing parts of loans. Students are expecting, for example, $2,000, yet they get a number that's slightly less. So this really helps kind of show them what is happening with their loan. And the nice thing about this tool is that it gives students the net amount. So it'll be the subsidized plus the unsubsidized net, not the total. So what's deducted is the net amount. So that gives them a much more realistic expectation of how much they're going to get in their federal loan. And throughout the entire tool, there's money saving tips and know before you go. So tips on how to kind of keep your costs low and other things to kind of keep in mind, and know before you go kind of give students more information and context about the aid that they're looking at. So if we jump down to other resources, we can give the student $1,000 in underfunding. So again, it keeps that running total. And then the other part I'm going to highlight is the make a plan part. So once students get to this page, they can kind of see, okay, here's how much my costs, here's how much my costs are on the right-hand side, and here's where I'm at still. So I have quite a bit of a delta I need to make up here, and $43,900 to be specific. So they can come down here and edit, maybe instead of the most expensive meal plan, they're thinking maybe they'll get, the next tier down and then maybe supplement with purchasing groceries or something like that. So students can go back and edit this. Or maybe they wanted to live in one dorm and then decided to live in a different residence hall. So students can make those adjustments there. They can also make adjustments here. Say they found another scholarship. We can give the student a $12,000 scholarship. So they can kind of go back and edit as things change and as they get more information. And then at the very bottom here, there's also some other options that are listed, which include the Parent Plus loan. Again, same thing, shows the interest rate and the loan fee. So it really shows students kind of what to expect, and parents, since they're the ones who will be borrowing, or parent guardians, since they're the ones who are going to be borrowing the Plus loan. And so again, same thing, the net amount is deducted from the cost not covered yet. And then students can also make agreements with their parents if they're going to be the ones to pay back the Plus loan. And if so, they can check this box. And at the end, it'll add it to their total debt that they're going to have to repay. But for now, I'll leave it unchecked and assume that the parent is going to be borrowing it. So the final thing I want to highlight on this tool is, can I afford my payment page? So this page is really one of my favorites on this tool. So once all decisions really have been made, or at least for the most part, because, you know, things are always in flux during, you know, college admission season. But in this case, we'll say the student has decided on their loans and they have a plan for how they're going to make up some of the differences in their cost of attendance. And so they can check in two ways to decide if this is an affordable loan in terms of payment. So they can say, how many hours do I need to work? So it pulls an estimated monthly loan amount payment automatically by taking the amount of loans that the student's going to borrow and multiplying that out for the number of years that they're going to be borrowing that. Now, obviously things can change, and in most cases they do, but it at least gives them a number to work with at the beginning. And then they can divide that by a $15 per hour rate after taxes. So they know that they'll at least need to work about 20 hours in order to cover this payment after they graduate school. So the other way that they can kind of see or make a determination if this is an affordable payment or affordable loan for them is by looking at a typical budget. So they can select the region they're going to live in. We'll just keep it Northeast just because that's where the school is at. So we'll just assume they're staying there. And then they can see kind of the average budget down here, and they can make any adjustments. So say instead of living by themselves, they are going to get a roommate. So we can bring this down. And that's just an example of some of the things they can do. And then they can kind of see, okay, based on this budget, the way it's laid out, I can make my payment and still have money left over. So the tool does take a bit of time to complete. As you can see, there's a lot of different factors. But the tool can also be saved and finished at any time. So at the end or at the bottom of each page, they can save and finish later, or they can go to the next step. So, and again, they can come back and edit any of the information at any time. And finally, sorry, one more thing I was going to highlight is at the very end, once they've kind of finalized more or less their plan, they can get some steps on what to do next. So if they want to put their plan into action, they can find out, you know, what it takes to enroll, make sure they reach out to the financial aid office, they can make a budget. So there's a nice resource there that they can use, making sure they know how to accept their loan. So it really just gives them kind of next steps and action items that they can take in order to make sure that their plan goes into effect. Or they could consider other options, you know, some questions and stuff to think about, whether they can maybe reduce their cost of living by living at home, if that's an option, getting credits for more affordable schools. So maybe taking a few credits at a community college and then transferring them in, things like that. So it gives them some things to think about. And at any time, like I said, they can always come save and finish later, or they can always move through to the next step. And that is all for the tool. And I'll go ahead and segue over to our colleague, Kate.
Thanks, Leissan. I'm going to be talking about not a new tool, but a relaunched tool from the Bureau that we just released last month. So this is for once your students have gone through school and they're into repayment, or perhaps you're working with a family that's dealing with repayment now, or if you're working with non-traditional students who have been in school before and have student loans that they're currently trying to manage, that's who this tool would be for. It's called, oh, the historic, like the previous name of it was Repay Student Debt, and that's still in the URL, and it looks like this. And I'm gonna share my window so I can just walk you through it. It's a pretty simple tool. Okay, so we will ask 2 questions of borrowers in order to get them to advice that fits their situation. One is just where they are with their loans. Are they struggling with them? Are they potentially in default? Or on the other end of things, maybe they're just starting out, or they are cruising along with their loans and just want to see if there's a way to optimize their strategy with repayment. So I'll start out for the starting to repay. We'll take a look at that. And then the next question will be what type of loans the student has. And so we'll take a look at federal. So for someone who's just starting out with federal, we're going to ask them to choose a repayment plan with purpose, and then we have some tips that they can consider. And so that's what each of these little segments is going to look like. There's going to be a basic first step and then some follow-up steps to consider. We have information about public service loan forgiveness. We have some general tips about managing debt. And we can actually scroll through this page. So this is all the different federal versions. So if they've missed payments, we have some options of things they can do. If they're in default, we explain how they can get out of default. This is for someone who's new to repayment and someone who is paying off their student loans and just wants to make sure they're doing it as efficiently as possible. So that's basically it in a nutshell. Just those 2 questions. What's your basic situation with your loans? What type of loans are they? And then we can show them some guidance to follow up on. And that's basically it. We have the URL in the deck. I think you can also find it if you Google CFPB and repay student debt. It'll come up pretty easily. And that is it for my portion. So I'm going to pass it over to Leslie.
Thank you so much. All right, so you've just seen, oh, I'm sorry, I need to go to my slide. You have just seen some wonderful tools. Now my section is going to offer resources that you might be interested in if you would like to help share these new tools and resources with your audiences. So let me show you what we've got here. So this is our filter tool, or at least a sample of our filter tool. And this tool allows you to sort through our classroom activities or educator activities. 2 of the fields that you would probably be interested in filtering on are saving for college and paying for college, in the categories of spend as well as save. All right, so when she's finding an activity that's interesting to you and you select it, you will see something like this, which is what we call it our activity detail page. And it identifies the big idea of the activity, identifies some essential questions that the students or participants will answer, identifies the objectives and what the students will do. It also gives a duration and the targeted age range. And we have activities for middle school, high school, and early post-secondary. All right, so let's go over one of these activities. So hopefully you recognize the value of sharing the CFPB Grad Path tool with the young people that you work with. But instead of waiting until they have their own financial aid offer letter in their hands, you would like to use our scenarios to guide them through the sections of the Grad Path tool. these scenarios can help you get familiar, can help them get familiar with these, with the tool as a sophomore, a junior, or early in their senior year. And with these scenarios, they'll imagine their friend's scenario. Emmett has been accepted to 3 colleges, and they will use one of those financial aid packets to review the steps of the Grad Path tool and can help you get through this. Now, let me show you the next activity I'd like to share with you today. So I have been recommending the college scorecard tool for more than 5 years. I love this tool. Now, the activity that we designed has the students use the tool to research 2 specific schools that are near to their home to learn more about what fees and options and benefits the school offers. But it's through a guided tutorial. Then obviously you can use, they can use it for something more targeted for their own personal interests, but this just walks them through it as a tutorial, and they will hopefully not skip some important steps as they go through it. So this might be an activity that you also might find interesting comparing higher education choices. The next activity I'd like to share is one that's a guided tutorial that students use to learn more about how to use the ESTIMATOR tool using information provided, again, in a scenario. Now, I really like the Grad Path, I like the Grad Path tool. It helps the student get familiar with how to use the ESTIMATOR tool without putting in their personal information in a public setting. And so in this situation, again, they're given a scenario with an imaginary college applicant who's applying for financial aid to attend Pretend University. And then I noticed the similarities and differences between these 4 students that, that use the ESTIMATOR tool. So it also gives them a chance to get familiar with the ESTIMATOR tool, but also see how the results change based on the person's personal circumstances. So it can be beneficial to flag that for them. All right, the next tool I want to show you is using a student loan calculator. In this repayment activity, we emphasize the benefits of prepayment, which is something that can help anyone pay off their loans faster. And so not only you're learning about repayment, but you also can learn about prepayment, which can be helpful. All right, and for the last activity that I'd like to share with you today, although please understand we have many more, these are just some of the ones I'm featuring. We've learned that when families wait to plan until late in high school how to pay for post-secondary education, there's just not a lot of time to prep properly. So we want to help people start earlier if possible. And so this activity helps guide that conversation and get that conversation started about how to pay for post-secondary education. All right, and then the last slide I have for you today is this one on our bulk publication site. And I would like to encourage you to visit our bulk publications website and order copies of print materials that you can share with others. We have, if you look over on the left-hand side, it says categories down on the bottom. And we have categories on credit, on managing someone else's money, on supporting older Americans, youth financial education, things for paying for college, just a wide variety of materials, as well as classroom posters that can be used. So if you're interested in and feel like you can use print publications that are professionally printed that you can hand out when you are doing some sort of presenting, please stop by our bulk publication site and place an order. It usually takes 3 to 4 weeks to get materials shipped to you. And Sadykova, I'm turning this back over to you. Full circle, people, full circle.
Great. Thank you so much, Leslie, and thank you to all of our wonderful presenters that presented some wonderful information today. I'm sure just by seeing the engagement in the chat that people found today's presentation very valuable. So thank you again to all of our presenters. And now I'll share some ways that you can stay connected with us. On the screen that you see our social media handles. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. You can sign up for our CFPB mailing list. There are 2 mailing lists on the screen, and you can join either one of them. The first one is for our financial education and educator tool, and the second is for our students and young consumers mailing list. And then lastly, you can email us CFPB_students@cfpb.gov, and you can keep in touch with us that way. Now we will get into a few of the questions that we received in the chat. And one question that came through quite a few times is, will you all be able to access this presentation after today? And the answer to that is yes. We will publish this presentation on our website, which is consumerfinance.gov. And I also posted a link to where you can access the presentation in the chat. So that link is consumerfinance.gov. The second question is people asked for links to the resources that were presented today. And throughout the presentation, on each slide, there's a link where you can access that resource. So once you have the presentation, you'll be able to click on the links in the presentation, and it will take you directly to the resource that you need. And then we have a few other questions. Let me get, okay, the first one is for you, Leissan. Can students use the CFPB tool to compare schools side by side? And if not, can this be an enhancement?
Yeah, so that's a great question. And the way the tool is designed is to be able to do exactly that, compare it side by side, but it has to be like one link per school. So they would go through the process for one school, and then they can compare that with another school. So they'll kind of go through the process twice, and then they can compare each page school, side by side, school to school. So that's one way that they can do it. I don't believe they can do it internally just because the way that the tool is set up is for that one school to be able to go through the entire cost of attendance and then all of the aid. So what they would be then comparing at the end is kind of, how much debt they're looking at graduating from school A versus school B, what their repayments look like, school A versus school B, things like that. And then they can then also use that information to compare, using the college scorecard and stuff. So the tool can be used in that way, and it's intended to be used in that way, but it will be a separate link for each school.
Okay, great. And while I have you, Leissan, we actually got another question on the Grad Path tool, and someone asked, how long does it take to fill out the information in Grad Path? So I guess from beginning to end, how long would you say one should budget in terms of time to fill out the Grad Path tool?
Yeah, and that's a great question. And I know in the financial aid world, our favorite answer is always it depends. But in this case, it really does, because it depends on how much information, the student has access to when they sit down to do the tool. So like if they already know all of their award letters and kind of know how much their family is contributing, how much their savings they have, things like that, they can probably get through it in about 20 minutes. If they need to kind of go and research some of that stuff, it could take longer. So that's, and the point of the tool is to be able to come back to the tool. It's not really designed, unless you want to really do it all in one sitting from start to finish. You can kind of get to a point where like, okay, a decision needs to be made, or I need to do some more research at this point. So you'll save it, go do the research, come back, pick up where you left off. And then kind of keep going until you get to the second kind of decision point or research point, save it, go back, do some research, talk to some folks. you know, and then come back and do it. So it really just depends on how they utilize the tool. If they want to do it all in one sitting with the information in front of them, I would say about 20 minutes. But then, you know, but again, you can always come back to it and adjust anything. And kind of when you hit a point where you need to kind of do more research or make a decision, that's the goal of the tool, is to then be able to save it and come back to it.
Great, thank you for that. And I see another question. Do you have information available in different languages? We work with Spanish, Haitian, Creole speaking students and families. For CFPB, Leissan or Leslie, I know we have some information that is available in other languages, but are any of the tools specifically, are they translated into any other language? And then I'll ask the same for Brent and Kellis regarding Department of Education tools.
That is such a great question. We have a consumerfinance.gov/language page that takes you directly to our translated materials. But unfortunately, I don't think we have a few of our tools also translated into Spanish, but I don't think our students' tools are. We have 12 of our student activities that are translated into Spanish. The estimator tool is. Okay, so we'll turn this over to Department of Ed because they have good news for you.
Hi, this is Kellis, the product owner for the estimator. Yes, you can access the estimator in Spanish. All of the studentaid.gov website is available in Spanish, and you can toggle that language in the top right corner of the web page.
Hi, this is Brent. Unfortunately, right now, scorecard is not translated in Spanish or any other languages. This is feedback that we've taken back and we are considering. I don't have a timetable on when or if we will be doing that.
Sorry, and I was typing poorly into the chat that we have materials translated into 8 different languages in written format. And if you needed to call in a complaint for some reason, we can speak to you in 180 different languages.
I think there's a question in the chat about where does the college scorecard data come from. It comes from a variety of sources, such as the National Center for Education Statistics, federal student aid data, as well as the IRS. Those are our main sources. If you are interested in learning more about the data sources, we do have a data page, and I will put that in the chat for you to visit, which has specific elements and where they come from.
Thank you, everyone, for visiting. We really appreciate it. Have a fabulous day, and we'll be getting these materials out to you in the next couple of weeks.